Hello and welcome to Stories of Joshua and Grace, where we discuss faith and spiritual growth in a relaxed setting. Today, we are going to be talking about John the Beloved. That's the disciple of Christ and one of his closest followers. Can I get a woo?
Woo, really?
All right. All right. No, well, the reason why I like this episode in particular is because John is one of my favorites. Actually, I think he's my favorite apostle, and I just really like the name John. The meaning of John is God is gracious. One thing about him is he's the apostle that wrote a lot about love in the New
Uh-huh.
Testament. He
Mm-hmm.
says, that God is love and things like this. And I feel like that is really important for the Christian faith.
Mm-hmm.
So he's both relatable and he makes it a bit more practical. Well, not like James sort of practical, but practical in the sense like you love because God loved you.
Yeah, true.
So we'll just start with a bit of a background of John.
Okay.
John, he was born in Bethsaida, a fisherman in the town of, basically in the Sea of Galilee. And he is one of the sons of Zebedee, he was a prosperous fisherman, son of Zebedee and Salome. This is not the same Salome that danced for Herod. Remember the Salome that danced for Herod that asked for John the Baptist's head?
How will I forget? That
Yeah,
story,
this is different Salome.
that story is a very emotional one. Jeez.
Yeah, son of Zebedee and Salome, and he was one of the people who really followed Jesus. He had an elder brother called James, and together they were fishermen, similar to Peter and Andrew that we spoke about last week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
John and his brother were also business partners. So now we'll talk about how he joined Jesus. Before following Jesus, right, John and Andrew were disciples of John the Baptist. And when John the Baptist pointed to Jesus as the Lamb of God, he and Andrew followed Jesus, and that's how they became his disciples. One day, while he was fishing with his brother James and their father Zebedee, Jesus called him and basically told him, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of people." And
Mm-hmm.
he and James left whatever they were doing, and they followed Jesus.
Yes, exactly. I cannot imagine how that scenario must have played out. Imagine going out with your brother and your dad and the hired men or something, and then you guys are busy doing work. Jesus comes and is like, both of you follow me, and they just leave their dad there. I'm sure even their dad understood.
There are a couple of stories like this that in the Bible. One that I always remember is how Elijah met Elisha. Remember when Elisha was
Yeah,
walking and then he
yeah.
just came, touched him, and then Elisha was like, "Well, new job." He just went and roasted the animals he was plowing with, served them to the people, and was like, "No going back anymore."
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think that's representing the type of dedication that it takes to be a Christian. It's not like it's an overnight thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a process, but you start with the decision to follow Jesus. We'll go on with the story of John. He became one of the integral parts of the disciples, one of the big three, as I would say, as I will call them. That's him, Peter, and James. And why they were the big three was because there were specific miracles or specific events that they were privileged to attend that the other 12 were not there. For instance,
Exactly.
remember we spoke about the transfiguration
Yeah.
last time when we spoke about Peter? Yeah, he was there as well. The prayer in Gethsemane where Jesus took the three of them closer, as well as other miracles like the raising of Jairus' daughter.
Daughter, yes.
Now, one important thing about John was, I don't know if it's because of his personality. Well, I doubt if it's his personality, but just because of his closeness with Jesus, he developed this sort of understanding of being a follower of Christ that's based in love. Because remember when they were having the Last Supper, and he said the disciple that was leaning on Jesus' chest, that was like right next to him,
Yeah.
and also even when Jesus died, he was there, and Jesus committed his mother into John's care. So there was this love relationship as really close brethren between like he and Jesus. I think that would explain why when he's writing about your relationship with God, he's talking about it from this sort of love aspect because that's what he experienced with Jesus. And then after the resurrection, he became one of the leaders in the early church, one of the important people in spreading the gospel.
You were talking about his closeness with Jesus.
Yeah.
Do you think it's because he was really young?
Well, although his age might have been something that would have made him close, but then again, I mean, Jesus tends to favor like the children, and he talks about how you should. But John was not a child.
Yeah, well, but he was actually really close to Jesus, though.
Yeah, and also
And
yeah,
no, continue.
Yeah, one of the reasons why I said that I think the reason he wrote about love a lot was because of his closeness with Jesus, not because of his personality, because he and his brother were known as the Sons of Thunder. So they were
Of what?
really aggressive boys.
Wait, of what?
Sons of Thunder.
Please tell me the part of the Bible that says that or something, because I'm
Uh,
confused.
that
Are you
is
serious?
Mark 3:17.
I'm just gonna Google Sons of Thunder.
Just Mark 3:17, yeah.
Okay. Oh,
It
wow.
might not necessarily mean being aggressive, but mean being bold. Yeah, because they were the ones that came to ask Jesus if they could sit next to him in heaven, and he said it's not up to me to give. They were really bold about their request.
Were they the ones or their mom?
Their mom, but like their family, yeah.
Oh my goodness, how did I miss this? Or maybe the thing is, there's a way you can read the Bible that some things will not just, I don't know. Maybe because you're saying it now, I'm like, oh. Anyway, go on.
All right. After Jesus' resurrection, he becomes one of the important leaders in the early church. Now, remember we spoke about how John wrote a lot about love.
Mm-hmm.
He had a lot of important writing, especially in the New Testament, writing the books of the Gospel of John, First, Second, and Third John, as well as his Revelation and the
Revelation,
Revelation
yeah.
of John. So now we'll talk about his exile and his death. Similar to the other disciples, remember, John was also persecuted for his faith. And according to the Bible, or according to traditions actually, he's believed to have been boiled in oil and then exiled to Patmos when he didn't die.
My goodness. Look at the way I'm asking as if you were there. I was going to be like, did he feel the pain of being boiled in oil?
I would assume.
Oh my god. But of all the kind of death, why? Ah, my goodness. Anyway,
They
continue.
had oil, they had fire,
You're not serious.
so the next thing was to boil him. So yeah, then they
Joshua,
exiled him to
please.
Patmos. They exiled him to Patmos, and now this is how God works in mysterious ways, because it was in his sort of isolation in Patmos that he got the revelation. I was able to write the book of Revelation, and then afterwards he was released and returned to Ephesus, where he continued preaching till he died. Unlike the other apostles, he was the only one out of the 12. He was the only one that sort of died of old age rather than martyrdom.
I feel like I'm going to have a lot of questions when I get to heaven because I know I'll get to
You
heaven by God's grace.
will join the list. The first thing is there's so much questions, but then again, we still do what God put us here to do first, and then.
Yeah.
But maybe if we read a lot of books, some questions could have been revealed to some people. So, because one thing
No,
I noticed, especially.
I feel some of the questions I may have are personal questions. For instance, if I see John, did you feel the pain? How did you recover? How long did it take you to recover before you wrote Revelations? This kind of random, unnecessary questions, but they would mean a lot to me.
When I go to heaven, I'll ask Adam,
Was the
was the apple
apple?
worth it?
I think you'll be sent out of heaven for feeling a bit of anger. I don't think you'll
He'll
be
be
able
like,
to
oh,
ask that
it was just
question
an
without
apple, right?
having this kind of look like, so was it worth it? You wouldn't ask from a place of love, Joshua. Trust me.
All
So
right.
if you're gonna ask, no
Yeah.
wait, if you're gonna ask Adam that question, what would you do when you see Eve?
Nah, they have to hold me back.
Oh my god, this is so funny. Obviously, you would feel the same when you get to heaven because they're like, in
Actually, I'll
heaven
be,
there is
yeah,
no.
yeah, in heaven. Anyway, yeah. So, one of the reasons why we are talking about this sort of aggression is in the spirit of John.
Uh
One of
huh.
the important learning points from him is how God can transform lives. So, basically, John, who was one of the sons of thunder, one of the fighty guys, was being transformed into the apostle of love. Jesus initially nicknamed him and his brother in Mark 3:17, like we said earlier. He and his brother James, sons of thunder, indicating their intense nature. But then again, John was the one that wrote the most about love. This just shows that once someone encounters God, their life gets literally transformed. Also, in the research of this, I just have to mention in Luke 9, chapter 54, and I think, yeah, Luke 9:54, where he and his brother John and James wanted fire from heaven to destroy a Samaritan village because they rejected Jesus. They did not accept him. And then John and his brother said, you know what? let this place be destroyed. And they asked Jesus that he should call for fire from heaven to destroy them. That shows it like he short
They're
fuse.
really sons of thunder.
Yeah, but then he was not the one that was saying we love because he first loved us. And then the other thing that we can learn from his life was even through his persecution, he remained devoted to Jesus. So this is some faithfulness that John showed. And then of course, another thing that I learned from him was how love is important, because he emphasizes the love of God and emphasizes how we express this as Christians because it was given to us by God. And then in the Revelations, he's always in the book of Revelation, he talks about how no matter the trial and the tribulations, the church will be victorious. That is, as Christians will be victorious at the end. What would you say really? Would you say you found interesting in discussing John?
First of all, I like when most people that give their life to most places you see that people give their lives to Christ, they introduce them to John. Most times they tell them to go study the book of John. Because John is holistic in showing what Jesus, the account of Jesus, and it kind of summarizes the whole God is love and makes us to know, like, without having that love, there's no way we can see God or we can relate with God if we don't have the love of God in us. Apart from the fact that he is the beloved, he is the one that also wrote Revelation. So imagine reading the book of John and reading Revelation. Sometimes you will not even know that it's the same person that wrote those books.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? I believe that because of how close John was to Jesus, Jesus literally gave his mother to John. Like, this is now your mother, this is now your son. I believe because of how John and Jesus were so close, maybe that could be why it was the task of John to write Revelation. I don't know if you get what I mean. When you're so close to somebody, they reveal a lot about themselves to you. I'm not saying the other apostles were not close. We all know that John was really, really close to Jesus. So the book of John literally shows what love is and makes us know that God is love. And that is everything to me.
Say that God is love, and like you mentioned, something relating to how his intimacy with Jesus would have exposed him to more like important and more details about Jesus. And we can see in his writing, like for instance in John 17, the chapter really important because it highlights Jesus' prayer when he was praying for his disciples, praying for the future Christians. Matthew, Mark, or Luke never highlighted these personal details about Jesus the way John could. So, of course, his intimate reaction with his closeness with Jesus would have given him the privilege to have this information.
I was just going to say, imagine Matthew wrote it, and then someone would be like, Matthew, were you there? Matthew cannot write stuff that he did not encounter because he was not there, but John had that privilege. So you cannot be like, John, were you there? John will be like, yes, I was there because he was really close to Jesus.
All right. Thank you very much. I think we'll come to the end of the episode today. Do you have anything else to say?
Aww.
All right. I will just say thank you all for listening to today's episode of Stories of Joshua and Grace. And I pray that you have a wonderful day and week ahead. And we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.
Bye.